Well, hello and a very warm welcome to you all. James here once again, and in this video I'm going to introduce you to my late 60s F-frame Moulton Major. Moulton bicycles have been a constant in my life right from early on, from when I started out in cycling, and I started out with a 14-inch wheeled Moulton Mini Deluxe, which was a sort of the smaller version of the rest of the range, and this I used and abused, and covered quite a few miles on. Did sort of quite a few mountain bicycle club rides and rides out with Dad and things like that. Kicked about around my locality with this bike, and generally had great fun with it until inevitably I grew out of it. Other bicycles came along, and but more or less there's always been a Moulton or some involvement there, and I had various machines since then, and really in the early 2000s I was sort of keen to pick up another bike, and I found a really quite nice sort of standard good condition Moulton Major, and this is the machine here, as you see, and in much modified form, I might add. So as I say, this started out as a standard Moulton Major. This is a rally made machine, and obviously post 67. With this there came sort of really good build quality, and a few different details that just make them, a really good all-round sort of sturdy bike, and ideal for my purposes. So fairly early on I modified it with some drop bars, probably I think an alloy seat post, different saddle, some Brompton 349 16-inch tyres, which were great at the time, and yeah, I used the bike for various duties really, quite a bit of commuting on various different terrains, and it put in a really good service, and this was all on the 4-speed Stone Archer hub, and for quite a while on the original wheel set, until I had a few issues with the hub, and it was still working but running a bit rough, so I retired that one, and I upgraded to a later, it's actually a 3-speed shell, which I had built into an alloy rim for the back wheel, and it still had the 4-speed internals. I wish I'd kept the original hub actually. I may have it somewhere, but anyway, so yeah, and obviously a new alloy rim for the front wheel with a more sort of a later suitable hub. So that was a sort of first major wheel upgrade. Stayed the same for a while, and this was how it stayed. I had a short period of using 17-inch rims actually, which Dad had spare, and the back wheel had a Fickel and Sachs 2-speed hub, which is sort of a kickback changing hub gear, which is very neat design with a like a drag brake, which was great because I changed the bike up a bit at that stage and sort of decluttered it somewhat. And at that time, I had even done a few time trials on the bike, and actually, for me, did quite well. And I did. I was pleased to break even on a 10-mile time trial, getting the half hour in, and it's, for me, that was quite a pleasing achievement. So yeah, I've used this bike for a number of different things, and I'm pleased to say I've sort of moved on from that kind of sort of performance side of things a little bit, and I've settled on mainly sort of commuting and touring. And yeah, we came along to probably about sort of 6 years ago when I decided the bike deserved a complete sort of strip down and repaint and refresh, and I did this with a Rover metallic green, which was horrible to apply, but I really liked. So I did this, and for some reason I still haven't applied any of the decals or the head badge, in fact. So that's why they're not there. I just never got around to putting those back. But at this time, this is when I changed up the sort of the setup and components. One of the main things behind this was my father very kindly letting me use a lovely, I think it's a 60s or 70s TA chain set with a 60-tooth chain wheel with 65mm cranks, and this, I was delighted to get this because I do like the look of an F-frame Moulton with a large chain wheel. It's reminiscent of the bikes used for some of the sort of competition riding, performance riding done in the early 60s, and yeah, I just love the look of them. So it's a 3/32 chain wheel, and for a little while I used a 1/8 standard Sturmey sprocket in the back wheel, and that was fine. But at this point, I got the nice brown Spar Cycles leather saddle, and I went over to using the Soma 3-speed handlebars, which are a favourite of mine actually. I've got a couple of pairs, and this gives a very pleasant sort of range of positions really, for the styles of riding that I enjoy most, and yeah, they've been wonderful. So yeah, and I also upgraded the bottom bracket. This is now a cartridge style square taper bottom bracket, which has been wonderful. Had no issues at all with that, and I think I've had the back wheel rebuilt as well at that stage. It has had a few replacement spokes, so the tensions are all off a bit here and there, so that was sorted out. And dual pivot brakes, which were a bit of a revelation for the Moulton, because they do improve the braking quite considerably, and yeah, this is by no means a new modification on F-frame Moultons, but as until that point I'd been using sort of Weinmann single pivot alloy brake calipers, which were okay, but the dual pivots do have a little bit more power, I find. So yes, that was braking sorted, and I'd used Schwalbe Marathon tyres for quite a long time, and they were great, absolutely fine for my purposes. But I thought I'd try some marathon races, which have proved to be absolutely splendid as well. And yeah, I think they work out at about a 28mm tyre, so they're not particularly chunky tyre in by today's standards by any means, but mated to the suspension on the Moulton, they work rather nicely, and so yes, there's suspension. Now I won't go into too much detail here because I intend to do some more Moulton videos, but there is front and rear suspension, if you don't know, and it's not particularly complex, but it just works for me anyway. This is one thing that I've found to be a great advantage for the type of riding I do on sort of fairly rough minor roads and a little bit of off-road rough stuff. And yeah, it's by no means long travel suspension, but it's just enough to take the worst of the shocks out and give a really nice smooth ride. And for me, it's one of the great draws of the Moulton. So I should go into that, as I say, in more detail in another video perhaps. But yes, it's a wonderful feature of this bike. So we come to last year. I had done a bit of touring on the bike and found that it was absolutely fine, but I was really overloading the rear carrier. And as I say, the bike coped tremendously well, and but I had really heaped on the kit, and it was all sort of a bit high up really, and I sought to come up with a solution to this, and I was pleased that it was fairly basic really, in that I was able to modify a seat post mounted rack, and the setup is very similar to the standard rack, only using one of these seat post mounted racks, which I was able to trim off the seat post clamp, which leaves essentially an open tube in which I inserted an old seat post, and this enabled me then to create the socket, which is how it affixes to the main frame. And this is like an ovalized, I should call it, it is like a plug almost. This is what is on the carrier, and this goes into the socket on the frame. That's a better way to describe it. So this is done by I just ovalized the old seat post in a vise to achieve the correct shape. A bit of trial and error and a bit of filing, but achieved what I needed to, and this fits really well and clamps up with no trouble. The main benefit of this little exercise was to gain the ability to use panniers, and this I've done with this this rack, and I'm able to use a pair of carried ice front panniers, and these are perfect. I couldn't really ask for anything better. They're exactly the right size. They fit without any impedance on my feet or anything on the bike operational wise. They just work really well. So that's worked out really well, better than I could have expected, and it really was way more simple to come up with this solution. And I was just very lucky that the seat post mounted racks that you can get, they're not all the same, but this particular one that I bought I can't recall the brand actually, but it was fairly inexpensive. It is sturdy and well made, and having done one tour, it just worked a treat. So this is a very valuable sort of upgrade, and I still use the standard rear carrier for general duties. It's perfectly adequate. It's just that if you're going to be loading up the back, it's nice to keep the load as low down as possible, to keep the bike sort of well balanced. And in combination with the front rack, I have a bar bag converted to fit on the standard front rack, and what is actually a belt pack sort of lashed onto the front of that, and this provides lots of sort of pockets and extra bits, and I just trialed it, and sort of it just worked, and so I've just left it, and that's how it's been for the last sort of couple of years now. So that's sort of the luggage sorted and carriers covered, and that is a great setup for my purposes. So the other main change is dual sprockets on the Sturmey Archer hub, and this I was able to achieve by using a pair of Shimano HG cassette sprockets with a minor modification. I run a 2113 along with the 60 tooth chain wheel at the front, and although I could achieve a lower bottom gear if I wanted to, at the moment it is about 28 inches, which is a much needed and welcome decrease in what I had before, so that's great. And the top end is more than adequate at 93.5 inches, so that means I have plenty of top end for my purposes anyway, and so that has been a bit of a revelation. Not a new groundbreaking change. Lots of people run this setup, but to achieve the 13 tooth sprocket and a twin sprocket setup, this has been a nice solution to that issue. I have done this on other bikes, larger wheeled machines, with 3/32 dished sprockets, but with the smaller Moulton 16-inch wheels, obviously the smaller sprockets are required, and these are not generally available in the dish variety. So yeah, another great modification, which has worked wonderfully well. So that brings us pretty much up to date. This is just been a fairly sort of brief overview of the bike. I hope you've enjoyed it. Please feel free to drop us a comment if you'd like to know more, any other sort of detail. And as I say, I would like to do more on Moultons. There's a lot to be said, and yeah, I shall endeavour to do that at some point. But for now, I'd like to wish you all the best, and I shall see you again soon on another one. So cheerio for now.